Hello, my name is Sherwood Lingenfelter. I'm going to be serving you in July, August at Alliance Theological Seminary in Nyack, New York. Marlinda Ireland and I will be the professors for you for this intensive second course in your Doctor of Ministry series, period. One of your pre-assignments for the course is to write a case study of your own ministry failure. In the book that I've written to guide you in this, I talk about it as a crisis, and any time we fail, it is indeed a crisis. And everyone has some kind of failure, or they haven't led. It's really important to understand that as we go through our ministries, there are always difficult people, always difficult decisions, always tough situations to work in, and we don't always do them to the very best of our ability. That's why I wrote this book, Leadership in the Way of the Cross. I'm encouraging you to begin by reading the first section of this book. And if you look at the table of contents, hold it up here so you can see it. Well, it's very difficult for me to do this in a way that you can see, but you want to read the first 55 pages in the book. That's really what makes most sense. So in terms of thinking about this 55 pages will help you to understand what it means to think about a crisis, what it means to talk about a crisis, what it means to analyze a crisis. And in fact, in those chapters, I have permission and have written up case studies from 5 different people, including myself, in this analysis. So where do you begin? Well, the first thing you do is you begin with the reading. And once you've done the reading, then you will be able to understand the nature of the topic that we have. But then I want you to go back and look at some very specific places as you write. And the first place you would go would be to the 14th chapter in the volume, which talks about reflecting on your own crucible of crisis. And we define this reflection as an opportunity of learning. And so if you have your book, open it up, turn to this page, and you will begin to look at what it means to reflect on your own crucible of crisis. Now, as we think about this, the pages that you need there are just a few, because the chapter talks about the whole process. And for writing the case, you really only need to get to page 156 and stop there, because it gives you an idea of how to go about reflecting, how to go about thinking about the case, and then how to write it up. And on page 156, you have a series of questions. There are 5 actual items in the table, on table 14.1 on page 156. So if you take a look at that page and see the table, those questions will guide you as you think about working through this paper. I'm going to just look quickly at those questions. The first one were, what is the crisis moments? We don't want to know every possible detail. Crises are long, they're difficult, and you don't need to tell us everything. If you can identify the crisis moments when things went sour, that's really what we want you to write up. And so what were the crisis moments, and who was involved in this, who were the other people, and how did they take sides? Now in this, I want you to use names. You can make up names or you can use real names, but I want you to think about real people, because crisis is always about relationships with real people. The second item in this table is emotions and values. Every crisis always has emotions and values. And so I want you, as you write the case, to think about your own emotions. What were your emotions? What were the emotions of others during the crisis? How were they responding to each other? What were the belief and value conflicts that were evident in the case? Now in this situation, you have your own values, you know what they are, and you know when people were disagreeing with you, when they were maybe giving you a hard time, opposing you, they have their own values. And probably at the root of some of your conflict were value differences. I have thought about that very substantively in this book, and if you would go back and take a look at page 18 in the book, you would see there in table 1.1, I talk about value conflicts that I had when I was in my first leadership crisis at Biola University. And it really helped me to just take some time and put these value conflicts on a table like this, if I can show it to you. Yeah, on a table like this so that you can basically compare and see what you were thinking, what the other people were thinking. Or sorting those value differences helps to make this a better insight for you, gives you a deeper thought. So the other thing that you have to look in this as we go back to the page 156 is when and how did you use your authority and power? What were you controlling? What systems, resources, relationships did you use to get what you wanted to have happen in this situation? And so when you look about that, you have authority, you have power in your leadership. It may not have been as much as you think. I never thought I had as much power as other people thought I had. But you have power. Power is given to us. People give it to us. And so how did you use it? And again, if you go back and look at my case study, on page 19, you have a table, table 1.2, which shows you my defaults with reference to power. And what interest I had that I used to make a decision that turned out to be a bad one for me very early in my leadership career. And so in looking at the power, I have on that page 19, my default command control settings. These are the things that I went to, and these are the reasons I use my power, and this is how I use my power to get the decision I wanted to happen. So as you look at your own case study, you want to look at those tables on pages 18 and 19 and think about your own case. How would you think about your own power and how other people thought about power? How would you think about your own values and how other people thought about values? And then process that as you write your case. The last piece on that table is, well, it's the fourth row. Actions. How did you work to manage the persons and interest groups involved? Describe the decisions and actions that you took to address the issues. So when you write the case, what we're really interested in is the crisis moments, the critical moments, the actions you took, and how you would assess those actions and how people responded to them, and what the outcome of all that was. So in looking at this, I've tried to give you a framework in this book to guide you and to help you understand what it is that you need to do when you write your case study. The very last part of that is to define what the outcomes were. How did this work out? In the end, you look at my case study in that first chapter, you see that I made a decision, settled the conflict, everybody went on, everybody was happy except the person who was against me. And that person then fought me for the next 10 years. It was a very, very bad decision. I look back now, I could have handled it many, many different ways. And we'll talk about that kind of thing when we get together in the seminar. But the point of analyzing a case study is to begin to reflect, think about this process. This case study will be something that you will come back to many times in the 8 days that you were in the seminar in NIAC. It's really critical for your participation in the whole class. And if you are concerned and don't know what to write about, then please contact me by email. We'll dialogue about it, and I'll try to help you in any way that I can. But if you've really been trying to lead, you've always experienced some opposition of some kind in some circumstances. And how you dealt with it is what we're really interested in looking at and getting you to look at, to think about, reflect back, and try to remember and then write up what your memory is. Now, you won't remember everything, but we ask you to limit it to a case that's happened to you in the last 5 years so that you have some memory of what happened and why. And then as you process it with your peers and with us during the time that you're at NIAC in August, you'll remember much more. And in that remembering much more, you will also be reflecting and growing because you'll see what you want to be in your leadership. And this will help you to reflect on what you perhaps don't want to be as you go forward. So I hope this is a good exercise for you. I'll look forward to getting your papers. They must be in my hands before you start the first day of class. And so I've given you the opportunity to turn it into me on the weekend. The earlier you get it to me, the more likely I can read it and give you feedback. And if I give you feedback, then you have a chance to revise it before it gets to your peers, where they will give you feedback and critical reflection. Thank you again. I hope this is helpful, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the 30th of July.